Why do we have good friends in life? All my shortcomings, my ADHD when I was a kid now, and they love me.
Here we are, Three Guys, Many Games. We're back. I'm Steve Sombrato. I'm here with my big brother, Vinny Sombrato, the rooster. Got Smalls here. He's looking like a rooster.
Yeah.
His hair's up in the air. He really is prepared for today, but we got a special guest today.
We're on
We're
the
really
golf,
excited. We got a Port Washington's own High Point head coach, John Crawley. Let's get a little hand for John Crawley. Welcome, John. Thanks for coming on and being with us today. You know, we're really excited to have you. You know, obviously, we like to go back. When we do these broadcasts, one of the things, and Vinny likes to get into it a lot, he likes to always go back to the beginning for guys. He wants to go back to the start. You want to start him off, Vin, with your specialty?
Well, in honor of John being on the show, being he's a Port Washington guy, we're Port Washington guys. I'm wearing my Port Washington Vikings 3/4 zip today.
There you go.
You know, John, we had the good fortune of watching John play with three of our nephews, the Fricaro brothers, that he played with at Port Washington. And, you know, they gave us a lot of enjoyment over the years. You know, there was a lot of good games, fun games to watch. And what I really wanted to get in, you know, John was a high school All-American. He did everything that everybody else. And one of the things I wanted to, you know, like Steven said, I like to go back. I mean, you were definitely a highly recruited guy coming out of high school. But, and I asked this of Petro, who you played for and coached with, didn't you? Coach with Petro no?
No, I did not coach with him. Just played.
You played for. So I was wondering how you're, because, you know, for these kids today, this recruiting process is kind of crazy. I don't know when you committed. Had you committed in your junior year, or did you wait till your senior year? How did that go for you?
Yeah, well. First of all, I'll start with I'm fired up to be here. Thank you guys for thinking of me and having me, and you know, been able to follow along on Instagram and listening to some of the podcasts. So excited to chop it up a little bit. Yeah, for me, I think so. At the time, the recruiting rules were you could talk to kids whenever you wanted. It didn't have to wait till September 1st of your junior year. And to be honest, I don't know if it was, you know, I don't know if I had expected to be a very highly recruited player. You know, obviously growing up, you know, I was able to be around some really high level players and really high level coaches, and was really fortunate to learn from a lot of people, including yourselves. You know, and I think back to my, you know, kind of childhood, you know, and also, you know, as I started to get into lacrosse a little bit further, you know, I was more of a baseball, wrestling, football guy, you know, growing up and you know, playing a little bit of everything from Harvey Cohen riding around on his golf cart with the megaphone at the time, at least for us, you know, growing up playing football at Lions Field. And, you know, I was kind of somebody who just did a little bit of everything. And I unfortunately had a pretty bad back injury right after my freshman year of high school. And at the time, you know, my freshman year, I played football, wrestling, and lacrosse. And, you know, honestly, my favorite was probably wrestling. My best was probably.
I never knew you wrestled.
Yeah. And my best may have been football, but lacrosse, it was something where I certainly loved the game, and I ended up choosing lacrosse, you know, over the other two. But I went into a back brace for 8 months, and you know, my freshman year, I started at attack, but I was a 140-pound, you know, 5'6" attackman, and slow, terrible feet, no left hand. You know, I didn't really have, you know, much thought of being someone who was going to get recruited to play Division I lacrosse. I just kind of loved the game. And so in that 8 months when I went into that back brace, the only time that I was able to take it off was for my rehab process. And, you know, and that's when I started to really get into the weight room. And that was really what changed everything for me. Because again, my freshman year as a 140-pound freshman, my sophomore year after those 8 months, I mean, I took my back brace off and walked into our first spring practice. I don't even know if I had many days of running before it, but I walked into that sophomore year at 175 pounds, gaining like 30 pounds throughout the off season. And that was kind of where, because of like kind of my commitment to the weight room and just getting better, I thought a huge change in kind of my trajectory happened. So my recruiting process, I played throughout my sophomore season, was lucky enough to play, like you said, with Jake, who was a junior at the time. Was able to learn a lot from him in practices and just kind of shooting extra after practice and all that kind of stuff. And went into the summer. I had a pretty good summer, but again, I think that I wasn't really expecting anything. I just loved to play the game. I loved my teammates on my club team. I played for FLG, and we just had a good group of guys that loved hanging out together. We liked, being at the dorms at Rutgers, and ding dong ditching other people in the dorms, and we were just having fun as kids. And then it started to happen, and then at the time again, coaches, the rules were a little different and weird, but essentially coaches couldn't reach out to us. We could reach out to coaches and they could answer the phone. So I remember, I guess Coach Petro reached out to my club coach, John Nessler, who's been at MacArthur for a little while. And he was like, hey, Coach Petro wants you to call him. So I did. Kind of started through that recruiting process, in the middle of that summer going into my junior year. He had a couple of visits lined up from Ohio State, Penn State, UPenn, Yale, a couple of the Ivies, throughout that. I was thinking basically for July, I think it was like July and September was going to start to visit some schools. Went to Johns Hopkins and fell in love with it. Me and my dad went. I sat down in Coach Petro's office. I felt like while my dad was a smaller Irish version, I felt like their morals and the values were very similar. The same way my dad coached me hard. I knew Coach Petro coached hard. That was something that I wanted to be around, something I wanted to be challenged by. And I remember, taking a nap on the drive home. We were caught on the Jersey Turnpike for a little while, and I remember waking up and being like, I want to commit. And I looked over at my dad and was like, I don't want to go see the other schools. He told me to, take a day and just kind of make sure that was exactly what I wanted to do. So I did. And then I'll tell you what, again, Coach Petro couldn't call me. I had to call him in order to finally tell him. And I called him, and this is not an exaggeration. You could ask my friends, my family. I called him 3 times a day for about 3 weeks. I think he was waiting for a little bit of a higher recruit to call him back, because I remember there was only one more attack spot left, and I was knocking his door down. I mean, I called him literally 3 times a day, every day. And then I'll never forget it. I was walking into, and you guys I'm sure know, Hickory's right on Port Boulevard. I was walking into Hickory's with Luke Rizzo, Justin Fernandez, a couple of guys. And again, it was at the point where I was just calling. I didn't even expect him to pick up because it was 3 weeks, however many calls that he was ignoring. And finally, I got a hold of him. I actually heard his voice. I was like, oh, and I had to run outside and ended up committing to him and, obviously stayed loyal from there. And it was, obviously a decision that I didn't end up going on a lot of visits. I didn't end up going and seeing a lot of things, but I'm really grateful I did just kind of trust my gut there and had an awesome experience.
Listen, Petro, he's a pretty relentless recruiter from what I know. And, obviously a relentless competitor also. So he clearly must have saw something in you that caught his attention that, why you were on his radar. But yeah, that's funny in that, it's a numbers game. You know it now as a coach, and you're going to go through it with your own recruiting, and it's so funny how people's trajectory in life can change based on other people's decisions also. A spot opens up, one coach thinks he's going to get what he might look at as a 5 or 4 star guy, and he's disappointed. The guy decides going somewhere else, and then he pulls in another guy who ends up better than the guy he thought was. So I mean, look, you're going through it now as a coach, and you have to try to some extent, project what a guy's going to be or what you can make him as a coach, right? I mean, that's a huge part of it now. And there are some coaches, I think, that are really able to identify talent and see the capability somebody not only has right then when they're watching them, like you said. Some guys are still like I was. I was still 140 pounds coming out of high school. So what was I projected? I probably would have been a 1 star or something like that. But I think the art of it for coaches, and you as a coach today, you're going to have to be able to identify kids that have that ability to grow from where they are now, not only physically, I mean, grow as a player. And then with your coaching, the way you coach it, or the way you train kids, that they fit for you. And I guess that's going to be that's the hardest part for you, because I mean, look, I followed your career, obviously, because you're a friend, and I watched you growing up, and we went up to the field a number of times and shot, and you could always shoot the crap out of a ball. You had a hard shot, and you had that nice little stutter move, where you and I loved how they used you in college, coming out of the box and from the midfield, and you would invert, and your history as an attackman, it paid dividends. You were able to initiate a lot for the Hopkins offense. They put a lot. You played a big role, and yet, like I said, you also were a threat from deep. Because you could shoot the ball. But your playing career was fantastic. Did you feel you exceeded your expectations in college, or did you feel you had that confidence? Where did you think you would have fit in college?
Yeah, I would like to think that I did. I think a lot of people, even when I committed to Hopkins, were a little surprised, or told me that, all right, you're probably going to be a defensive midfielder. They've got all these 4 or 5 star recruits. I guess for me it was, and to your point, it is an art, recruiting. I mean, there's talent that makes you interested in a kid, but do they have the love for the game? Do they have the competitiveness to really do things at a high level? Do they have the work ethic to match that competitiveness? It's an interesting world to have to decipher through, especially with however many kids we're able to see today. I mean, there's so many kids playing lacrosse in
Yeah.
so many games, so it's a lot. I do think that I probably surprised some people. I remember feeling that kind of my first couple games at Hopkins. I remember, and a pretty funny story is, so I was a, like you said, I was a high school attackman, so I went in as a college attackman. I was on the
I'm on the podcast with Crawley
depth chart. I was like the 12th attackman on the depth chart after the fall. So like complete bottom. And again, like that, I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect to play. I didn't expect much. I just knew I was going to work at it. And so I was the 12th person on the depth chart. And that winter, Coach Petro asked, he's like, what do you think about playing midfield? And I said, I'll do whatever it takes for the team. Whatever you need me to do. If you need me to be a scout guy, you need me to fill up the waters like that. I'm good. I'm excited to be a part of this, and I'm just going to work as hard as I can in order to change where I'm at. So I moved over to the midfield depth chart. Didn't go up any spots. I was still the 16th midfielder heading into the spring. But after week 1, I was 12. After week 2, I was 9. After week 3, I was 7. So I was kind of knocking at the door of a second midfield. And then going into our first game, I was the 4th midfielder and ended up playing every game of my career. And I think that was just a product of, everything that I had learned in the fall. I think I learned more about the game and more about technique and skill than I did previously. I Coach Benson at Hopkins. He was my offensive coordinator. And, I was shooting like the high school low to low shot and like the fadeaway and all this stuff. And it was like, that's not going to work here. Like, you're not going to do anything here if you continue to do that. And so I just got to work. I was able to watch Wells Stanwyck be on the wall for hours. I was able to watch Ryan Brown shoot. So I saw what they were doing, and I just tried to do it more than them. I saw Mike Pellegrino in the weight room. I was like, all right, I'm gonna hop on his coattails, and I'm gonna do it a little bit more than him. So I just tried to pour everything that I could into every day, all throughout that winter after that depth chart came out. And I agreed with the depth chart. It wasn't something that I was like pissed off about. It wasn't something that I thought, that the coaches were wrong about. Like, I watched the film. I saw some people doing things at a really high level, other people not. And me being one of them, I needed to get better. I didn't take it as an insult. I just saw I saw it for what it was. And I just got to work. And so again, I was able to watch and learn a lot, that first winter, my freshman year, between fall ball and spring. And then I just kind of chipped away at it. I did move to midfield. It was a little easier dodging short sticks. I was pretty quick to pick up on how to pick, how to cut, how to screen. And our offense was very free flowing. So if you can make good decisions and be simple, and not play with much ego, like, there was a route for you to play on the field. And then my freshman year, I basically, set picks and got ran over for Wells Stanwyck to get a short stick, and then I'd get out of there and let him make the decision, because he was a better decision maker than me. I think a lot of it, and I've seen this a lot at my level, is people end up developing because of their self-awareness. And I think that some kids think that they're owed something or expect something that they don't earn. And I think for me, I just loved the game. I loved to compete, and like, I wanted to get better. And so I poured everything into that. I didn't expect to play, but the work ended up giving me the opportunity to do that, because I performed in practice and ended up getting lucky a few times and kept my job. So I think that a lot of people didn't really think I was going to be able to play there. A lot of people didn't think that I was going to be able to play offense for sure there. I'm just looking at the other people who were playing, and, I do think probably exceeded some expectations, but to me, I didn't have any expectations of myself. I think I was just, all I expected myself to do is pour everything that I had into it. And then, you tend to get a few lucky bounces when you do that.
Hey, I got one question.
Smalls, I just want to touch, because you probably don't know this as well, and I want to touch on this of when you're talking about Petro and what Petro might have seen, etc. And I think that anybody that meets John, or particularly, I want to ask a little bit about, and knowing them, his family, the thing about the Crawleys, Mr. Crawley, you're not going to meet a more honorable, genuine people ever in your life. And this is what exudes, and that's what I think a little bit in terms of Petro, what he could probably sense is they're so real that they know they're hardworking. You could just tell. They got leadership qualities that exude right away, that you can tell, like, this guy is going to put the work in. There's just no question about it anytime you meet them. I love his father. Your father is, like, I always say, is a special person. And it filters down to all of your families. And you have, your three brothers, Brian, and Patrick. Patrick, to me, is the GOAT. He's the GOAT. I mean, this guy is, like, unbelievable. He's, anything you throw at a Crawley, they overcome. They seem to overcome it. And that comes from leadership skills and an internal drive. And it's not about getting applauded or awards or a different thing. It's a self-satisfaction thing, I think. And it's, to me, it's what makes any person have success. If you believe in yourself and you have the drive to put the work in, you're going to have success. And from watching you, even from, like you said, there were definitely doubters. I could feel those doubters at that time. And when you started to have success, it showed, and it was a success that was shown through hard work. You were doing all the little things, all the grinder plays to bring success to yourself. And then you were adding other elements to your game. And then there was the doubters that said, well, yeah, he did okay there, but now could he actually like play in the pro leagues? I don't know if that he. And the same thing, you went out and grinded and started playing amazing in the pro league. So it's I think it's your internal. Maybe you could tell us a little bit, from your family upbringing, which I know is just tremendous. Like that attitude to bring to the table that drives the success.
Yeah, I mean, I owe all that to my parents. You know, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, when I didn't make a team, it wasn't a complaint. It wasn't, the coach's fault. Like it was, let's get back to work. I remember, growing up, I grew up right around the corner from the school, and I would get home from whatever it was, baseball, wrestling, lacrosse, basketball, whatever sport it was. And, we would get home, and then me and my dad would get back in the car. We'd drive over. We used to, when I was a pitcher, there was always light in the Chase Bank parking lot right next to Weber.
Yeah.
And he used to be the catcher. I used to be the pitcher. And that's where he would have me throw, 30 to the inside, 30 to the outside, and, high, low, whatever it may be. So I think that just from the beginning, like he instilled a work ethic in me, and made me love the game too. He was certainly hard on us, in the way that parents want their kid to show respect to the game, and all of those kinds of things. But he came out and did the work with me. He didn't know lacrosse, so he used his baseball mitt, and we would have catches, and he would throw me bad passes and frustrate me and all these kinds of things. But it was all to get to work. And I think that just growing up, he's worked construction, blue collar guy. I think that I just watched what he did, every single day for our family. I watched what my mother did for all of us. I'm the oldest of four, and you know the way that she cared for us, the way that she'd do everything that she possibly could to make sure that we were all taken care of and the house was taken care of and all those kinds of things. Like I was really fortunate to have two people kind of show me how to operate. And, I do think I owe a lot of it to that. And I think that there are little moments, throughout your childhood when you could start to veer in a different direction. You could start to complain. You could start to do something in a different way. That if you're kind of straightened out in those times about where your mindset is, I think those are pivotal to who you end up becoming. I'll give you a pretty funny story that all my friends kind of joke with me about, because my dad, it's no flash, all substance. That was always what it's always been about. And I think it was in like sixth grade. I started to make some really high level baseball travel teams. And if you've ever seen kind of the young kids in baseball, they wear all the cool sunglasses and like all the bands and all of like the kind of like the swag things. As I started to play for this travel team, my father was working, so my mom took me out to I think it was like East Moriches for our practices. And I remember we were passing the Tanger outlet, and we pulled in, and all the kids on my travel team had these really cool sunglasses. So I begged her for it. She was like, "Yeah, no problem." She ended up getting me like a cool, shiny, flashy sunglasses. So I went to practice with them, thought I was really cool, came back to my PYA team where my dad was the coach. And he comes back and he sees me go out into go over to shortstop with the sunglasses on. He pulls me back in, and he asked me, "What are those?" And I was like, "What do you mean? They're my sunglasses. I just got them. You like them?" And he took them off my head and just cracked them right in half, and was like, "That's what you have your eyelashes for." And because it just wasn't about the look. It wasn't about anything other than like, you're here to play a game that you should love. You're here to get better at that. And then it wasn't until after college that I got my first pair of sunglasses. Those are those things that those are just things that kind of, in your childhood, I think that when you have people that kind of keep you in, where you're able to keep the main thing, as you're growing up, I think that that works wonders. Now, the sunglasses probably could have helped, maybe see a fly ball or anything like that. So they could be pretty functional. But that was just the kind of guy he was and is. That it's about the work. It's about and that's it. It's not about the flash. It's not about the look. It's about are you getting the job done?
Smalls, what did you wanted to ask John something?
I don't know. You guys are so boring today. I almost fell asleep. Just kidding. Anyway, first question, Craw. Listen to me, because I have a little bit of issues going on. Tell me. Your name is what's your full name? Your middle name too.
John Ryan Crawley.
So, what was your nickname in school? I got to have a name to call you.
Short
It
crawls.
got to be like one word. If it's two words, like J.P. Morgan, I can't get that. I tell Vinny, don't give me these names that match. Only thing I can call you is Crawdaddy. Did anybody call you that? We had a restaurant out here called Crawdaddy's.
It was mostly crawls. Crawls was the easy one that a lot of people would do.
What would you like us to call you, the three guys here, the fans?
Crawls is great. That
Crawls,
works.
all right, Crawls. All right, I don't know any questions. They're always going to be boring, and they're going to pick on me. But this is a question. One of the things I had for you. Also, like that talk, looking back at your career, what now that you're a coach in hindsight, what could you have done better to be a better teammate? Now looking back in hindsight, as you were growing into the spot, how could you have been a better teammate as you're teaching the kids today?
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably when I look back and what I think about with our team and talking to the leaders of our team, our seniors, and is to just not allow anything less than in the highest level. I think at certain points in time, when you are a teammate, there are friends that you have that maybe aren't all the way bought in or aren't doing the same type of work that you are, and I think it's Kobe Bryant says or used to say something where like, why would I pass him the ball if he's not doing the same work as me?
Yeah, work ethic.
I don't know.
Like that,
I don't
work
know
ethic.
necessarily. I don't know if it's necessarily that, but I do think that there's something to, not allowing the people around you to not pour everything that they have into something. And I think that was something that at certain points in time, in high school and in college, I think that I rallied some guys who like also had really high work ethic. And I always look back and think, what if I could have gotten more people to come with me, and come do the extra work and come do the extra things, and how much better of a team could we have been if I had done that?
So when
leadership is your thing for kids.
When you were finishing school, what was the moment where you sort of said, I guess I don't want to leave the game. Obviously you went on to play in the pro league, but then at the same time, did you look to go into the real world, or right away was like, I'm going to go into this coaching world? Like, did that decision come fairly quick, or how did that come about?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so everybody, a lot of the guys at Hopkins, specifically who are older than me, I think that, when you're in school, you're typically looking up to the older guys to like, all right, what route do they end up going into? And you kind of end up just like following their path in some ways. And I think, so I was an economics major at Hopkins. So a lot of the guys who were also economics majors were going into business, going into finance and all those kinds of things. And I actually had a pretty good opportunity lined up right out of school my senior year, going into fixed income sales in Manhattan. And I was kind of, again, following the train. But every summer, I never did an internship. I mean, I coached lacrosse. I trained for lacrosse. I did a bunch of camps and clinics every year. I was only around the game. And then when I'd come home, I'd help my dad on his construction sites at times. And that was the work that I so I remember going into Coach Petro's office, heading into, I think it was like March of my senior year, when it was like, all right, you got to sign a contract or not. And I was like, you've coached 17 years of guys like me. I was a two-time captain. And, if you're a captain for Coach Petro, a lot is demanded of you. And you spend a lot of time with them.
You a captain?
Yeah.
Two-time, not one time, two-time.
Holy shit, man. That's insane.
Yeah. So, and me and Coach Petro were very close. I mean, we, constantly in contact about the team. And, I was meeting with him at least twice a week. And, I was in a lot of ways, especially after a year of it, almost somewhat resembling a coach in some ways. So I was really lucky to see how he handled things, and
Right.
I was able to be a part of a lot of those
You went
processes.
from number 16 to being a captain on the team. That's
Exactly.
crazy.
And being
He went from, he's almost like Vinny Sombrado, went from a Scrabini at Chaminade all the way to being he was a Scrabini. We're not going to talk about that now, but he stunk too. People got to know he stunk. And he didn't get playing time his first year, but we won't get that. That's good, though. You went from 16 to captain. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Crawls, I like that, Crawls.
So was Hopkins, was going back and coaching at Hopkins your first gig?
No. So I went in and basically what he said when I asked him is he's like, I think you'd love being a coach. I think you love being around the game. I think that, just the way that you think about things, I think that you'd love it, and I think that you should at least give it a shot. And so I did. And I went into the summer. I kind of bailed on the finance job. I went into the summer, got drafted into the MLL. I was lucky enough to do that. So Jim Stagnita drafted me. His son was a freshman on my team at Hopkins. So I had kind of a relationship with him. He picked me up in like the 6th round. Again, I think it was a little bit of a charity pick just because I was pretty close with him. Ended up getting an opportunity to play in my first game and went 6-1 and kind of had a job for the next 2 years. I lucked out there. I had a really good relationship with Coach Staggs and still do. And he was really close with Kevin Corrigan at Notre Dame, who was looking for a volunteer assistant. He was looking for a young guy to kind of bridge the gap between some older coaches and the younger players. And he gave me an opportunity. He wanted to meet in Baltimore. He was recruiting in Baltimore. I think it was like early July. And he was recruiting. I met him at a Baltimore waterfront hotel. We spoke lacrosse. We put salt and pepper shakers around a table. He offered me a job for not much money. And 2 weeks later, I moved out to South Bend. And I just kind of took
insane.
Just kind of.
And that's how you started coaching. How old were you at that time?
I was 21, 22.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and all my friends from home, they're working in finance in the city. They're working, they're out of the train station in Port and going there. All my friends from Hopkins were, in kind of those worlds. And I kind of just took a leap where I was like, you know what? I love
You're having more fun than them. They're telling you how many millions they made, and you're sitting having fun building lives. It's building lives or becoming how many millions of dollars you have in the bank. At the end of the year, at the end of the time, building lives is way better. But we're not going to get into that though. But keep going. That is great.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, so that was my first opportunity. So just gave it a shot.
I love it.
It was an awesome experience. I learned so much at Notre Dame my first year.
21 years old, as a coach.
I know you guys had Jerry Byrne on here. He was I was over at his house for dinner, 2-3 times a week. He really looked out for me. Him and I became really close and still are. So I learned from him. I learned from Coach Corrigan. I learned from Matt Carwick. Essentially there was now actually looking back, there's 4 head coaches on that coaching staff. And
wow.
I learned a lot from those guys. And honestly, I fell in love with the game because of my experiences with those guys, or I fell in love with coaching rather because of my experiences with those guys. Again, like it was a family atmosphere. They did everything and more for me. And
they gave you a chance that you needed. That's Vinny talks about getting the opportunity for kids and people. Sure. That's a good thing. I like that. Yeah.
So how many years were you at Notre Dame?
I was there for a year.
1 year.
Yep. And then Matt Carwick, who was one of the assistant coaches, got the job at Colgate.
Okay.
And he was offering me the opportunity to be his offensive coordinator.
I remember.
And so, I took that job. Again, I'm, 23 years old. There's kids on the team who are older than me. But he gave me an opportunity, and again, really grateful for him and that chance. So I was up at Colgate for that next year as the offensive coordinator there for his first year at Colgate. After that year, I took a job with Kevin Cassis at Lehigh. So I was at Lehigh for 3 years, and again, just around really good people. I learned a lot from a lot of really good people.
What a lucky kid!
Exactly,
that's a lucky kid.
Interesting about it is like. You look at the people, you're right, the people that you're involved with, especially from the coaching level, just around Petro and then Coach Corrigan and Jerry Byrne and and
he's got to be lucky too as young to get in there.
Exactly. And and you're a spark.
Wow.
Well, you
And
make your
sometimes
own luck.
people,
You make your
yeah,
own luck, and you
yeah,
get the opportunities based on the reputation you're developing. And he
right,
was
exactly.
developing a reputation that he had value. You know, he's a young guy. That's important too for some coaches because he's able to relate to players maybe better than a head coach sometimes. Sometimes I think at least, you know, at least in my experience, you know, some young players on teams they're more open with an assistant coach than they would be to a head coach. They're a little intimidated by a head coach, you know. So that's important. I think
Man,
John.
I'm sorry. That sounds a little odd to me, but it may be right because it's coming from you, the goat.
That's just
Telling
my
me,
point of view.
you're telling me a younger guy is more effective than a head coach?
In terms of relating to the players, sometimes.
Oh, talking because you're younger. I got you. All right.
Closer in age, you know, he's
I
closer
got
in
you.
age. He's,
A lot of
That's a good
times,
point.
players from a head coach's standpoint, you know, he's looked at as he's the coach,
Right.
but
I
he's
got
also
you.
like an authority figure.
Good point. Yeah.
He's the guy
Yeah.
who can give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
You're right.
The guy you end up making like almost a friendship with is your assistant coach.
That's funny they said
Who's
that.
taking
Yeah.
interest in you, and they, you know, that's why the assistant coaches are very valuable to a head coach. You know, it's something that you know they
Wow.
add so much, and and that's why you know you just said it. You know, look at the assistants you had when you were an assistant at Notre Dame, and how different guys have moved on, and you know, there's some guys who just like being assistant coaches. They have a lot of value, and I think that you know you're relatable. So I think that you know coaches or people who are giving you those opportunities, they recognize that and they recognize that value. You know, and that's look. It's not by accident that you go from you know 16 or wherever you are on the depth chart up to whatever, and then be the captain. And there's something there. You know, and if people recognize that, if they can't recognize that, then forget it.
Really, but it is rare though to go from that high. It's rare.
It's
It's
rare.
very rare.
Well, that's my point. My point is that somebody should be able to recognize that, and that's why John has been given an opportunity to now be relatively young guy in as a head coach at a university that has a bit of an established program, but is looking to take that next step. You know,
I
so
thought you said you're a head coach.
so
You're a head
went to
coach now.
Lehigh. How long were you at Hopkins? Because then you went back to Hopkins.
Yep. So I was so I was back at Hopkins for 2 years.
Okay.
So the last two seasons, I was back there, and then obviously got this opportunity at High Point, earlier in June to kind of explore it and see. I wasn't sure, honestly, when I first got reached out to by the athletic director here. I didn't really know much about High Point. That was just the reality. I knew Asher Nolting went here. I had heard campus was beautiful, and every year or two, they'd upset an ACC team, and so I'd always been following from afar, and I have a ton of respect for Coach Torpy and all of his staffs, and but I really just didn't know that much. And then I, peeled the layers of the onion back and learned more about this place. It's a unique place, and in my opinion, is a place with a ton of potential for lacrosse specifically. It's a place where we don't have football. It's us is like the biggest size team on campus. It's a lot of Northeastern kids who end up coming down to High Point. So a lot of kids who, lacrosse was big at their high school, so they are interested in lacrosse. They like lacrosse. They want to come to the games, and what Coach Torpy did in a short 14-year stint. I mean, he started the program 14 years ago, to be able to, be super competitive in the A10 the last couple of years, but also win a couple SoCon championships, have a bunch of PLL players. I started to see why when I started to look into this place. The president here took over 20 years ago, and it was an 1,800 student liberal arts college. Now there's 6,500 students here, and there's 17 different schools. I mean, there's business school, there's the school of dentistry, law school that just went in. Like the growth opportunity down here, it's an interesting place. It's a God family country university, and I think that's attractive to a lot of people. And, there's a huge emphasis on life skills and student experience. And so the more that I kind of learned about it, I was like, this is a sleeping giant that's not even asleep. They've had some really high level years. They beat Carolina last year, and they've had some really good players and coaches coming to this program. And ultimately it became an awesome opportunity. And, it's been that way all the way through.
Do you have a business plan where you're going to come up with something where someday you might take it to the Final Four? Maybe a little NIL. Maybe somebody could give you $1 million that got money in that. Isn't it a Christian school or something, a religious?
So it's not necessarily a religious school, but like the core values of it, is very much, again, a God, family, country type place. I mean, if you got $1 million, I'll take it.
So that's what I'm trying to tell you. I'd really like to help you. You're a young guy. I'd like to really get on board. And I said, if you guys would listen, they never listened to me. I'm not like everybody else, unfortunately. But I'm saying, had you had a business plan or something, how you're going to get there, maybe you present it, there might be some people that give money, because some of those schools, they give them a lot of money to basketball and football now. I haven't really seen lacrosse, but I think there's room maybe to break through, and maybe we can pay some players and to get to the next step, and maybe to win a national championship, because isn't that your ultimate goal? I mean, help the kids, and why not you?
Exactly right. No doubt. I mean, business plan wise, I think realistically, we got to get the right people in this place, and we got to align them by the same core values. And like that is where it all starts. And in order to do that, the NIL thing is certainly alive and well in our game. It is a thing here, So yeah, I mean, I
you could be the first to do it. You don't even need a lot. I want to do that at Hofstra. I'd like to see it advance the sport, because we do have a lot of money in the sport. We just don't know how to generate it and put it to the right thing. I think we can do it on a smaller level and build up some of these schools. I don't think it's a bad thing. What say you, Vin?
Well, I don't know that we're there yet with lacrosse in terms of NIL stuff and all. Lacrosse is a phenomenal sport, but it's not a revenue generating sport for a college. If anything, it probably costs them money to have a team. So there's a little of that to deal with.
So you're saying they're not going to get money like I want to St. John's basketball. That's my team.
Well, I don't know. Look, if you have an alum that has a real interest and a love for the sport and a love for the team, maybe played there, and the guy's got.
They might have a couple of billionaires like Duke, Vinny. He hits them up with a business plan. Give me, a couple $100,000 for this guy. They get a couple of players.
$1 million from you, Small. You got to start writing the check out.
Well, I'll write it. I will write a check for them.
There you go.
How's your locker room, by the way? I'll be the first guy. You got one?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to write a check for you for the locker room, like I did at St.
We don't have one.
The thing, Small. The thing about High Point that I would always hear, it was like almost like the Google campus. Like it had all of these amenities and all of these things.
I see it on TV. It looks beautiful.
It's crazy. It's like it's really, really nice. But I was going to ask you, John, like what when you recruit now, like what's your plan in terms of recruiting? Like what do you look for? What do you go for? Are you just completely national? Do you target geographically? How does it work?
So we're definitely national. We're willing to recruit. There are good players all over the country. There's no doubt. I think that naturally, anybody wants to trust club or high school coaches and knows people at a deeper level that you can trust to recruit from. So being from Long Island, I've got a lot of people on Long Island who I really trust and I know very well, and I know that they're going to get the proper coaching. To be able to come in here. So, I think that Long Island's a really important area for me to recruit from. I think the whole Northeast, I've, a bunch of connections in Baltimore and some of these other places. Like, I think naturally you end up recruiting at least a little bit from some places that you're familiar with and you have connections with, just because just because you trust the people, not because you just like the place or it's just a stereotype of the place. I think it's more that you just trust that they're getting coached in a certain way. But, we are certainly recruiting people from all over the place. I mean, we're recruiting Canadians. I think there was a stat when I got in here that there has never been a high point lacrosse game played without a lefty attackman from Canada.
Wow.
So, Coach Torpy did a really nice job up in Canada. And there have been some really high level guys come through this place. I mean, Braden Maia, graduated last year. And I'll tell you, the more that I had started to watch High Point this summer, I mean, he is an unbelievable player. I mean, he's playing right now in the NLL and the PLL, and I think he's really, really high level. And so are other guys that have come through here. Dan Lomas was a really high level player.
Right.
So recruiting.
So you're getting these players, though. You're getting better echelon, if that's the word, players. You're getting better players.
Yeah, well, I think Coach Torpy did a great job as well, and I think more than anything, right? Obviously, talent gets you on the board, but what we do what we do a lot of work on is making sure that we're understanding where the kid comes from, what kind of kid he is on his team, what kind of teammate he is, how competitive is he?
Right, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Like, how selfless is he? Something that
Right.
I look at on the offensive side that is probably different than some other coaches is like, I really look at how people pass the ball. I think shooting is certainly important. You got to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. But,
You have any Chaminade kids?
we do. We got a Chaminade kid coming in, kid Matt Offsey that had committed to us. He's an LSAP.
I've coached
Yeah.
Crawley.
Yeah.
Is that your first Chaminade kid?
He is.
There you go.
For our recruiting classes, yes.
I was going to say, you look at it, they know who I am now. Say my name, Vince.
Mr. Chaminade. He's Mr. Chaminade.
Mr. Chaminade. You need anything in there with the coach? I'm going to know the new coach is coming in, and I'm the guy to I'll give the little push that you may need for some players.
Take it easy. You're getting ahead.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
You're getting ahead of yourself. Slow down.
So, John, this year, now let's talk a little bit about this year. You've had as a first year, there's been some highs and lows. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. It seemed like the team. Listen, in college lacrosse today, I always say especially if you follow, we do our picks and things, and we can't get anything right. It's like you don't know what team's coming out. One week they come out solid, the next week they lay an egg, and it's like a big roller coaster.
Second, what do you mean we can't get anything right? You guys can't get anything right. You're losing. You're at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm winning. I'm winning again. And they don't know what to do. Crawley. It's bad. This is really sad.
You
Crawley.
just proved this point. You might as well be throwing a dart at a dartboard.
But so High Point season thus far, you've had some good finishes, and especially this past week beating a very strong St. Joe's team. You've up and down, but you've positioned yourself. I think every team at the beginning of the season, as far as expectations.
Wait, Steven, did you beat St. Joseph's? I'm sorry, what?
Just last week.
I'm sorry, they said it. I wasn't paying attention to usual. That's a great win. That's a great win.
So, I think every team at the beginning of the season, their goal should be if they say, oh, well, maybe you win your conference, well, to win your conference, you got to get in the conference tournament, so, and then you got to win some games to get into the conference tournament. So, so as far as checking boxes, you've made it into that first box where you're in that conference tournament. Now you've done the work to get yourself there, now coming off that win, and obviously still got to play St. Bonnie's, to position yourself. And there's no easy games, it seems like. What are you looking forward to in terms of maybe the next few weeks, and what kind of potential noise you can make going forward this season even?
Yeah, I think the end of seasons are always exciting.
Yeah.
As playoffs start to come around. But I think the most important thing that we can do and manage is like, we just have to have a great practice today. That's what we need to make sure that we're, singularly focused on. Like, we got to get better today. And the goal for us, I think every year, you go into a year and you're around 18 to 22-year-olds who want to win a championship. I get it. I want to win a national championship. I want to win an A10 championship. There's no doubt that those are things in the future that we want to do. But if you get really caught up with creating those goals and only thinking about those goals, you lose sight of what is really important, which is to get better. And that, and I think that for us, to your point, it's a bit of a crapshoot. It's, you got 18 to 22-year-olds that are seeing social media. They're seeing this, they're seeing that. They come from different places. And what has been most important for myself and our staff and our captains is to make sure that guys understand, like, we just have to worry about the day. We have to worry about winning each day. We got to worry about, are we eating the right things? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we competing out at practice? Are we getting the most out? Are we doing things with intent? Are we getting the most out of our lift? Are we getting better? So for us, I think that human nature is to look towards the end. Human nature is to look at, we have this, we're going to have, we're going to be the 2 seed, and we're going to have either this team or this team in next Thursday. And then we're going to have this team on Saturday if we win that. And I think that that's where teams lose sight of what's important, which is, like, we got to worry about having a great practice today. We got to worry about beating St. Bonnie's this weekend. And then when we get to next week, we're going to be where our feet are there. And I think that that's the toughest thing, for 18 to 22-year-olds. So it's tough for us is to understand, like, all right, we are close to some of our overarching goals, but we can't be staring at them. We can't, it's like, you got a pimple on your face and you keep picking at it. It's not going to help. You just got to do the things necessary on a day-to-day basis to just get better. And if our opponent is faceless, if our representation out on the field, no matter who it is, no matter what attack, no matter what midfield, no matter what defense it is, that we're worried about playing our brand of the game and just playing simple and doing the things that we talk about, then we will get better. And that's all we're focused on. And I think that, human nature brings you to a point where you're looking at those championships and you're thinking about them. And, the biggest goal for me that I'm excited about is practice today.
Do you feel like in the landscape of what, lacrosse is now, especially with portals and all of this stuff, does it make it harder for some of, conferences like 10 and maybe some of these other, conferences that are not like maybe like the Big Ten or the, or the ACC, where, sometimes it doesn't, you don't snap your fingers and it doesn't happen when you're trying to build a culture. It takes a bit of time, but it's sort of harder to do that if you're starting to build that culture. And then before you really get a guy for 4 years, if he ends up leaving and going somewhere else, it's harder to build that. Do you sense that that's a challenge that some of the other conferences like A10 or Patriot League teams and et cetera have to go through?
I think so. I think that the nature of the transfer portal, I think, creates some, maybe just a lack of continuity at certain points in time. But I don't know. I think we're just going to have to see how it all ends up playing out, because I think about it like, at the end of the day, there are kids who may make a decision because if you go all the way back, you make the decision your junior year-ish to go to a certain school for a certain reason. And if you show up and it's not necessarily that, I wouldn't hold it against a kid for, if it's for the right reason, entering the transfer portal to find something that is a little bit more towards their expectation. So I think that you can look at it both ways, and I do think it starts to, like, even its way out. I think of, our team right now. We've got 2 transfers on our team, and both of them have been awesome additions to our culture. Awesome. We have a kid, Owen Button, who transferred from Army. It wasn't for him. And like right now he's a freshman and he's leading our team in goals and he is as tough as could be. So like, if we're talking about our culture being tough, without some of the ground balls and some of the plays that he's making, like, are we as tough of a team?
Hey, Crawls, I'm a little confused at something. This is me anyway. Vinny loves this part when I'm confused. No. Here we have to laugh also. No, but when you're doing something and you're building a brand, and here you are, we'll deal with an example like myself. I'm not happy at High Point. We're building a brand. It didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And here I am as a sophomore. I want to leave. You're hearing rumblings and everything like that. As a coach, do you call the guy in the office with all the other coaches, or do you have a meeting with the kid yourself and say, listen, I've been hearing things. How do you handle that part of it, knowing that you may lose a player? Do you not say anything at all? Do you let it go because it's hearsay? Or do you get the kid and you call him one-on-one? I don't know how to handle it. I don't know myself how I would do it.
Yeah,
It's trying some times we have now. They're hard times.
No
You're
doubt.
dealing with stuff no other coaches had to deal with.
Sure.
Go ahead, coach.
Yeah, no, so like the center of our, culture, so to speak, and the things that we talk about is it's everything starts with the level of respect for each other. And to me, the center of respect is telling each other the truth. And so for me to be able to tell our players the truth, for them to tell each other the truth, that is like, to me, the center of what can help build.
Yeah, but coach, let me play devil's advocate. I understand what you mean, but say the kid's not happy. Are you able to pick up on his not happiness?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
how do you?
Combination of everything, right? Like if it starts with telling each other the truth, like I am not afraid to have those conversations. I'm going to be extremely direct. If I don't,
yeah, but what if you're not playing the kid? What if you told the kid, listen, we want you to be our starting attackman, and the kid digressed or whatever the word is, he's not doing good. Now you're sitting the kid. Here's the family in the background. Here's all the bit. I don't understand this coach. He brought me here. I'm not playing. These are realistic things that do happen, and sometimes it's not your fault. It's like a gray area, and it is very hard to deal with. I'm not going to play for that coach.
When you communicate the truth, when you come from a place of giving the truth and not hiding behind it, then maybe.
But there is no such thing as truth.
No, there's truth.
There's
no such thing as truth, no such thing as facts.
Excuse me. Let me emphasize and get a chance to say what I meant. I don't mean the truth. I'm talking about the gray area for the coach. He told me I was going to play. My parents, I'm going to start. And now I'm not playing on the team. I want to leave. This is what's happening, Vin. The sport is kind of like in a very mixy.
And here's what I'd say is then go.
Yeah. I mean,
and if you got to go, you go. And I guess my point is the center of it is truth.
Yeah.
They come in and willing to say that to me, and like, that's okay. Like, I'm not going to get offended or if it's not exactly what they expect.
Coach, I gotta push back on you a little bit on that. You would say just go. I would try to figure out how I could keep this kid because he may be valuable down the road. Maybe he's not a starter. Maybe I say, listen.
Maybe he would if that's what he felt. But you're making a hypothetical situation.
Well, of course, I'm not picking on him.
Fantasy kid
listen,
who wants to leave. These are all
John. This is all stems from his life.
Yeah,
so these questions have to do with him.
No, because Vinny.
He was a national champion, but he's still mad that he never got on the field. So that's
here's a guy. Okay,
this is what
Vinny's only locked. He never won in college.
This is the kind of questions that have come out. No, but
but coach, seriously though,
the point is this, Smalls.
It's not about me.
You're playing a sport. There's not the one thing that works in any sport you play or anything you do in life is hard work. If you
didn't have to deal with people in the portal.
Put the work in, you're going to succeed. Now,
I know all that.
You're just giving a hypothetical about a kid.
So I'm not picking on him.
You slow down. You're shot out of a cannon again. Yeah. Take it easy. Take a couple.
You're attacking me. I'm giving good points here.
Breaths and listen for a second instead of keep talking. What I think as a coach, and this is from my point of view, how I would be. It's very difficult to say to a kid, you can project what you think. If I'm recruiting someone, I can project where I think. An obvious question: where would I play? Am I going to be in attack? Am I going to be midfield? Would you use me at X? Would you use me on the wing? A coach is, that's a loaded question, because what you just said, if he says, "Oh, I'm going to use you at X," but now the kid is not really capable, and you got somebody who develops better than him, and now you put the other kid at X, you're going to say, "You lied to me, coach. You told me I was going to be X." It doesn't work like that. This thing is a constantly evolving situation, coaching. You have
Vinny, I understand that, but you're in a portal situation. Years ago, we never had that.
Well, and then he said the right thing.
You would have left Hofstra. You would have left Hofstra.
That's what he gets paid for, to be the coach. So if he's making those decisions, they may be all right. Some may be wrong. Who knows? But if the kid at that point is unhappy with the decisions the coach is making, that's a good thing there's a portal. He's got an option to go somewhere else.
Right.
Because if he's good
And
enough,
that's where it
somebody
works
else
for
is going to grab him and say,
No, you missed the point. I asked you how he would handle that when you got a kid there that you may need him down the road for the playoffs.
He just told you. He just told
Yeah.
you. By
So
saying
so
he deals
it's
it
really
from a basis of the truth. Starting
Yeah,
with being honest with the kid, that's where it starts. I would much rather have a harsh truth told to me from a coach than to have the guy pat me on the ass, but in the meantime, he's really bullshit.
Vinny, can I ask you a question, Vin?
Go ahead.
Vin, this is my opinion, but it's only my opinion. You played for Hofstra. If we had the portal back then, you would have left Hofstra.
He did have the option. He was. He
Well,
did have
hold
the
on a
option.
second. He did not have the option. He went to work the last year.
No,
He didn't play.
the portal is a different situation. I had an option when I was out of school after my second year, but the rules were different. You had to be in the school for a year. It was a whole process.
No, but Vin, I didn't ask that. I said, would you have left?
If at that time I had a better opportunity and I could have left to a portal, yes, of course I would have. If I would have
You
said,
said if you would have played if you would have went to Hopkins, you would have won 3 national championships.
well, they won 3 times without me. So I think if I was on a team,
No,
like
I'm just
that,
bringing a
hell,
point.
I
I'm
think,
sorry, we got a little off course. Of course,
I think what you're saying is like, but what if that kid can turn into something for you? And that's just, I guess my point is like, I would be honest about that.
Yeah, are you holding the kid back from reaching his potential? Not you personally trying to. I'm not picking on you. It could be anybody.
I'm not taking it that way.
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying because
these kids are leaving now.
Yeah.
I'm hearing rumblings next year. I'm not going to name names on the thing here. People are going to leave. People are going to 3-year players are going to leave the schools to go in the portal.
And
is
I think the other side of it that I think is really interesting, and I just saw a stat of this, I don't know the exact number, is that I would just be honest and give them the full picture. I would say, hey, like this person performed better than you in this, and this. We could watch the film. I could give you my reasoning. I could be right or wrong. I'm not sure which one it is, but I have to make a call, and I'm going to go off of, and I use a lot of statistics to keep it as objective as possible, so that way they understand and they see why they're not. This is what I think. I think if you do this, and this, you could potentially be playing by your junior and senior year. But if you don't feel like you have to earn it, then this may not be right for you because that's what you have to do.
Right.
Now, here's the other side, that the other picture that I would paint is I think I saw this in basketball. I believe it was basketball, a stat in basketball, where I think like out of like the 600 people that went in the portal last year, I think like 65% of them either didn't find a home or went a level down when they expected to go a level up. Because here's the thing, if let's say 10 guys go into the portal, we're not going to take all 10. We may take 1 or 2. So if there's an influx of people in the portal and everybody wants to go find their perfect world, they also have to understand the risk of not being allowed back on that team. Number one. Number two, they have to understand the risk of losing the respect of some of their teammates for not wanting to do that or for wanting to leave. Or number three, they may need to go a level down when in reality, they just lost their opportunity. So I think
So you're not. So what you're saying, you're not supporting the risk.
What do you mean?
You just told me. Are you supporting the guy taking the risk? You're saying
I'm going to let him make his decision because I can't want something more than he wants it. I'm going to give him all the information that I have. And if he really wants to be here, I want people who want to be here. I want people who want to be a part of High Point. I don't want a kid if all of a sudden he's looking over the fence and looking at another place and, oh my gosh, I could have played here. I want them to want to love practice, love the game. I want them to love their teammates. And if those things are less important than playing, then this might not be the right place for them.
Might not be the right place.
So,
I'm just saying it's a very hard.
Where it's rooted in, number one is treat others the way that you want to be treated, tell each other the truth, and then two, grass isn't always greener, and you just have to always know all of the information so that way you can make the best decision for you, because at the end of the day, everybody has to make the best decision for them and their family.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get in the way of that. I want to just be honest about where I'm at. And if that kid doesn't work out, okay, then maybe we need to find another kid that will. And it becomes as
John,
simple as that.
John, one of the speeches that Vinny gave one night when North Carolina was up and they had playing Hofstra and they had a dinner, and Vinny gave a great speech and he was talking to the whole team, and it goes to this point where what is this all really about? And he was saying to the team is basically like, they had like whatever 50 guys on the team or however many guys, and obviously there are guys that are never going to see the field, but they are important too. They are part of the team in the sense that it's their job, even if they're not, one, to learn how to compete and push themselves, which also pushes the other guys and keeps the heat on them. And that's how the team succeeds. So maybe if you're not even really having the individual success, your individual success comes from learning how to compete, pushing other guys. You might not get the glory, but you are learning things. These are experiences in life. This is a journey that people have to be on. You don't ever get, not everything always falls into your lap. And sometimes that's got to be good enough. And it is good enough, because you'll find success stories in business after the guy got out. And like Smalley likes to say, he became a millionaire after that. Well, maybe he learned it by, he didn't really play much in college, and he pushed.
Whoa, you guys are so oily. It's like,
Yeah, no doubt. It's all preparing you for what's going to happen in life, and it's not always fair.
Yeah, but Crawls, on the same notion, I understand what Steven's saying. I listen to these guys all the time. These guys are the geniuses of sport. I always push back, but what he's saying is, so if I'm second tier or third tier, without the label, the way I could talk about it, so you're telling me that I don't have a shot to be first, that I don't wish a player, there's people that wish.
He didn't
There's
say
people
that
that wish.
He's not saying that at all. He's not.
But there's people that wish.
Everybody's got an opportunity to be first tier, but you got to work to be first tier, and you got to be better than the next guy.
He's saying that.
You just don't become first tier because you want to be first tier. You know what I'm saying? The guy's got to prove it. This is a sport, Smalls. This is a game. You got to play the game. And if you have success on the field, and I'm not saying, are there times where guys get a little overlooked and maybe aren't given an opportunity and maybe put in a place? But coaches are not perfect human beings. They're making choices, and especially choices sometimes during the week. He's got a lot of time to think about stuff. When he's watching film, he's got time to think about stuff. When you're in the game, in the heat of the moment, that's where great coaches are made, because they're able to make instantaneous decisions to give their team the best chance to win. And they're able to make those instantaneous decisions because of what they see the whole week with a kid.
Yeah, you're right about that, Vin. I got a compliment for my friend Vinny.
So, you want to, it sounds to me like you want to think that there's just a total level playing field and every kid is going to have the same opportunity all the time. The only opportunity you're given is to work hard and earn your spot. That's it. That's the opportunity. And if you're a real competitor, that's all you need. If you're a real guy, that's all you need.
Well, I also think that, like, if you lose yourself in like loving practice and loving getting better, like the label of playing or not playing becomes less important. And Steven, you brought it up earlier. Like, and I said this after our game this past weekend. We won our game against St. Joe's this past weekend because the scout team last week was awesome. They weren't okay. They did everything and more to give us an awesome look. They made practices really hard all week. They made it really hard on our top group. So our top group had to, there was one day where they had to, after practice, one of our senior defensemen kept the entire team out on the field to do some extra clearing because St. Joe's makes it hard to clear. And it was our entire starting group and our entire scout group out on their own working on the clear. And when you looked at the game, we did a good job in the middle of the field, and that gave us the opportunity to play with them, and it gave us the opportunity that other teams have struggled with against them. They have an unbelievable ride, an unbelievable 10-man ride. If we didn't feel that pressure all week of practice, we don't win that game. And when you actually start to understand that as a player, that like, okay, if I just pour everything into this team and everything into the team's success, you start to lose the I need to be playing, the I need this, I need that. And that's what being about a team, part of a team is all about.
Right.
And that's also what's going to set you up to be the best husband and father that you can be.
Exactly.
And it's also going to set you up.
So you won the game by riding. You beat St. Joseph by defense. Riding means on the player, right?
I think we did a good job in the clear. We had a couple failed clears, but we ended up scoring 2 off the clear, and those were really, really big moments. They make it really hard. They are a really well coached team. They play super hard, and our guys felt that all week in practice. And our guys had a level of poise in the clear that we didn't have when we played Virginia and Carolina, because those two teams 10-man a lot, and we did not do those. I think we failed 7 clears in each game, and that led to like 3 goals or 4 goals going the other way. And those are the little things that end up leading to wins or losses.
Crawley, you got great answers. For a young guy, you got great answers. You must have been around the right people. Oh, I give you credit. You got the best answers. Yeah, that's great.
No,
hey, Vinny.
Being around the right people is important, but more important is paying attention and being able to accept the advice and take the bits and pieces. I tell you this, how many times before when we're out, have guys on, and I talk about as a player that you play with other great players and maybe not so great players, but they do something better than you that you can learn from. When you learn from them and you can pick up those things, your game's going to expand and you got a better opportunity to play and be successful. It's the same thing in coaching. You can watch tape and you can say, okay, why did this team, they were down 1, they had the ball, what did they do out of the timeout? How many times you see a guy, you could go.
He's the best at that.
You could go in a huddle.
Go ahead, you're the best at that.
Go in a huddle with 40 seconds left in the game. You're down 1. You call timeout. You have a scripted play, say, right, and something that maybe you've practiced during the week for this exact moment, and then you come out and the whistle blows and the first kid gets checked on his hands and he throws it out of bounds. What are you going to say? Why did the coach do that? Come on. Yeah. That's the reality of sports. Those are the kinds of things that happen. So that's why you got to constantly be attentive, and you got to keep persevering. And just, you make a bad play, you got to forget about the last play, learn from it, but forget about it and move to the next play. And that's how you're going to become a successful player.
Hey, Coach, I want to bring Vinny taught me something very valuable. I watch a game when he gives me so many tips. I could be a Division I coach just on his tips alone. But laughing at that, saying that, he told me something that might be helpful to you. When there's a few seconds, and say it's like 18 seconds or 12 seconds in the game, it all depends upon who picks the ball up at the half line. Go into it, Vinny. Say what you told me. You can explain it better.
Honestly, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
No,
all at the half line. I mean, you're really giving me.
You want to give it to a fast guy who get up the field when there's no time on the clock. You were telling me something one day. Do you remember what you told me? He can remember everything. Go ahead. Help me, Vinny. Don't sell me out this time.
Scrambled thoughts.
All right, forget it. We'll move on there.
No, what I want to know, now you're down in North Carolina, right? So you really don't get much access to good pizza. So, do you miss Carlos's? What, you're a Carlos guy? You're Gino's guy?
I am a Gino's guy.
You're a Gino's guy.
I get a lot of crap. I get a lot of crap for that. Well,
Vinny likes Gino's. He took me there.
All Carlos.
Right.
I love them both, but I'll tell you what. When I'm not home, I don't even eat pizza. I don't even bother. I mean, it just is discouraging. I mean, I would even say that when I was living in Baltimore. I wouldn't even touch it. From bagels and pizza. We actually have a great bagel spot here, High Point Bagels, that is a New York guy who came down, and he's still got his New York plates. He wears his Yankee hat to let everybody know that It's
Exactly.
good
And
stuff.
I'm making the best bagel.
Yeah, pizza wise, I don't even touch it until I'm home. I mean, it's not even worth it.
Right. So what's the town that High Point's in? What's the
It's in High Point. So High Point, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yep.
Okay.
I personally live
Holy
in.
cannoli.
Yeah.
I didn't know it's in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Nice weather. It's been like 80 degrees for the last like 3 weeks. I know.
Hey, Coach, I happen to like you, man. You're saying all the good things. I wish you best, man. I think you got a great future. I'd like to see you win a national championship. Also, you look like a friend of mine who I lost, Ricky Ryan. So I'm forever going to love you. The young Ricky Ryan face,
Is there any particular team or coaches that you enjoy coaching against, like where you run into them, where you face off against particularly somebody?
That's a great question. I mean, just in terms of our schedule this year, there's only a couple teams that I'd played in the past, just because my first year here. But I would say everybody in my conference, I mean, every single head coach is a really high level head coach. I mean, Coach Shamati at Richmond, I think, has done an excellent job. Coach Ray at St. Joe's, literally all of them. Coach Canella at UMass. You go down the line
Coach
in the 8.
Canella was a teammate of Smalley.
He was my teammate. He was great, man. I love the guy.
Yeah.
He brought me on the field. Oh, he was so special. Came to Hofstra. What a wonderful person. Coaching at, I think, 36 years now. That's a lot of time.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So, everybody in our conference is a really high level coach. I think in the last couple of years playing in the Big Ten, I always loved going up against Maryland. Obviously, I think that they've got a couple of the best coaches in the country. Coach Tillman for sure, but I think Jesse Bernhardt was always an unbelievable coach, an unbelievable adjustment maker at halftime. I mean,
you're 100%. He's on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, he's done.
He's on my Mount whatever it says. Really knows the word Mount Rushmore, whatever it is. Mount Mushroom. I can't get the word out.
What is it? Mushroom?
Yeah, but it's everyone. I mean, I think that there's a lot of high level coaching going on, and
tell us about your staff. Who's included on your staff?
Yeah, so my defensive coordinator's name is Alex Reddy. He played at Denver. He played goalie at Denver. Him and I actually worked together for a year at Lehigh. So he was our volunteer assistant, and him and I worked really closely. We became really close that season, and then afterwards, he ended up going from Lehigh to Duke. He was at Duke for 2 years, while I was at Hopkins the last 2 years. And when I ended up accepting this job, he was my first call. He was a guy, again, just made a really high level relationship with, and I think he's done an unbelievable job working with our defense throughout the year. I think as a team we've steadily improved, but I think specifically he's done a really, really nice job with our goalies and our defense. And then after that, Peter Dolan, who comes to us from Rutgers, he was at Rutgers the last 5 years under Coach Brecht. He works with our face-off guys, and our face-off unit has been excellent all year. So he's done a really nice job.
Right away, I love that kid.
Yeah.
We're geezers, but we actually, only a couple of years ago, we actually played in the Caniac Open. Vinny was playing also, and I was playing.
I believe that.
65 years old, still playing.
And there was
the guy is unbelievable.
Guy who we played against because he was playing with his Syosset boys.
Yep.
Luca Cardo.
Yeah, right? Luca Cardo, yep.
I thought the kid was tremendous. I said in the game when we were playing against, so I go, this kid is flying around. He's really good. And I've always kept my eye on him, and he's having another great year. He's a horse. This is a kid that's that kind of kid. He's a horse grinder.
Really? He works his tail off and has done such a good job this year. He's like, Long Island, wants to be a cop, a kind of guy, and just works at it and has done an awesome job. And Coach Dolan has done an awesome job with him, and our whole face-off unit. So that's our other assistant. And then our third assistant is Matt Littner. He was at Roanoke the last couple of years. He was the offensive coordinator at Roanoke. Him and I actually crossed paths when I was at Notre Dame. He's very close with the Byrne family. His father and Jerry are really close, and So I ended up crossing paths with him at a couple camps back at Notre Dame, and he's done an awesome job. He helps me a bunch with our offensive guys, and just realistically everything he does. He wears a lot of different hats and has done an unbelievable job. So all three of them have, hit the ground running right from when I got hired last summer, and hired each of them at different points in time, and taking over a program of, we've got 58 kids on our roster, coming into a program with an unbelievable former coaching staff that created a really good culture already, and so there's been a lot of work, and I'll tell you what, the staff has done an unbelievable job. They really have, and put us in a position to again travel to our conference tournament, like you said, and we'll see what we.
Hey, Coach, are you very nervous? Are you very nervous when you got the job? Like, because it's a very big responsibility for a young guy. Like,
Yeah, I don't think I really had much time to be nervous.
you didn't think it, but you went into the. I got you.
You
Yeah,
get right into it, and it's like it's
wow,
essentially.
it's a lot of responsibility, man.
Yeah, but
God bless you, man. I really wish it's not easy, man. Today, handling so many kids.
I bet you Smalley didn't know this accolade that John Crawley has. It might be one of his most special.
Crawls to me, baby.
I don't
He
know.
crawls everywhere, this kid. He might crawl his way to a national championship if he takes my policy and raises $1 million. He'll have the first 3 guys. I'm telling you.
You're my
He can
first
do
call.
it, this kid.
You're my first call.
Did you know
Thank
he
you.
was? Did you know he was first team All Alley Pond?
Yeah, he made our first team all Alley Pond.
He was first.
This coach goes back to Alley Pond?
He was down.
Vinny, he's not one of your disciples, is he?
Now, not
Yeah,
many
he's a
people
lax
know
rat.
about that.
He's a lax rat.
I didn't know. I don't know much.
Man.
I'll tell you what, Vinny, you brought it up earlier. When you are a player growing up and you're in an environment like Long Island, you're around so many different styles of the game that you have to be able to learn from different people around you. And the art of like pickup lacrosse has gone away a little bit with how important club lacrosse is and recruiting is. And I think it's a huge detriment to the kids in their development, because everything that they do is, all right, weight room, club games, and then like individual lessons. And there was nothing that prepared me more for college than being able to play at Denton Avenue or Alley Pond. And my first
Vincenzo, my man.
first time really playing with you guys, because we had shot before out, down at the pit, and but it was more like just shooting and stick work and stuff like that. But then finally playing some pickup lacrosse. The only lacrosse that I knew at that point was, all right, we're in a 14, we're going to dodge from the wing, we're going to throw it forward, or we're in a 1-3-2 triangles and we're going to rotate around. So all I knew was structure. And I think it was my junior year of high school. I think it was Denton Avenue League that I came and played with you guys. There's a lot of college guys, so I was kind of like starstruck a little bit by some of the people who were playing, and you were suited up and you were playing. And I think my first time being out on the field, you told me, because I kind of wanted to know, like, what's our plan? How are we going to win? What are we doing on offense? He's like, well, after you pass, you just got to move, and you got to cut, you got to screen, you got to pick. I wasn't a basketball guy. I was a wrestler. Played a little bit of basketball, so I didn't know what a cut or a screen or a pick was. So all I knew was to pass and cut. And that was my first real experience into like just playing pickup and playing free and learning how to play the game, learning how to look someone off and do something else, and gaining real chemistry with somebody without knowing the X's and O's, and like, being able to kind of mess with your defender and mess with your guy. And that was my first time ever doing that. So that was, for me, something that like I'd never seen. So it was super uncomfortable with it to start. But as I started to show up more and get better at it, I think it really prepared me for my time at Hopkins, because Bobby Benson, my freshman year, was the first year that he kind of put in this, kind of free flowing offense. Literally, I think there was like 7 or 8 rules. And, the first one was our spacing. And the second was, after you pass, you got to cut, screen, or pick. And I was like, oh, so I do have some freedom to kind of play what I learned in pickup, in Alley Pond, in Denton Avenue, in some of these things that, had I not done that, I'm not sure if I would have been able to go up the depth chart, because I don't know if I would have known how to set a swing pick or set up my butt so that way the angle of the dodger would go to the right spot, or when to cut, when not to cut, when to keep your space, when not to. And I think I think I just think that these are things that kids need to learn. And unless right now they're being taught that kind of offense in club, which some clubs do give some freedom, and I've seen some of that, but I've also seen kids continue to be robots. And when they come to college, and I still run that offense today. My offense is there's 5 rules. You got your space, you got to pass, cut, pick or screen. You got to create off the pass, cut, pick or screen. You got to work to have outlets in front and behind the ball. You can't be in the same spot for more than 5 seconds, and then you got to move in the direction of the dodge if you're in the way, essentially. And so,
just
yeah,
principle based coaching.
yeah,
Stuff that I think guys. So that's to me in terms of coaching, right? I always felt like there's two kinds of coaches. I've played for a lot of great ones, and you know there's coaches who coach to the players they have, and coaches who coach to the systems they want. So I always found it like when I played for coaches that had a system. I mean, there's some good things in having a system, but when you don't have the players who are capable to play that system, you're only hitting your head against a rock at some point.
no doubt,
I always feel like not every kid is the same. Not every kid has the same talents. Not every kid has the same decision making ability. So you have to make it easier for them. You have to give it a little bit more of a free flow. And so, I like to coach. If I was coaching, I like to coach to the players I have, as opposed to saying, this is what we do and you have to conform to what we do. I like to more say, give the kid the freedom, because I think that's where they're most comfortable and the most confident. And when you're most confident, that's when you play best. When you're
no
confident.
doubt.
Bottom line.
I like that, Vinny. I agree.
Right? So
Well,
I've seen some of the top players I've played with, in certain games or whatever, grip up, and where, guy's a phenomenal player and all of a sudden he can't catch a pass. He gets so nervous, he tightens up. So the idea to be able to coach to where kids are free flowing and they feel like I'm out here playing and having fun. Because to me, you got to be having fun. I know everybody wants to win, but when you're having fun, that's the best.
no doubt.
My question is, have you ever considered, like, this is one of my things watching lacrosse for so many years. Like, you're at a team now, maybe it's like a mid-level, I would say, you're trying to work your way up to get to that top 10 at some point. That's of course the aim and the goal. But, I see a lot of teams year after year, based on the talent they have or whatever. It seems like I've watched it. I was playing in college in the 70s, and obviously the rules have changed. The style of play has changed. When I played, there was a horn after every out of bounds. And then they had rules where there was unlimited. Teams would have 6 poles on the field you were playing
Sure.
against. That
Yep.
changed. Then they limited it. Then they brought it down. And all these changes, I think, have made the game better
Sure.
as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
But have you ever considered, I said one time, if I'm a coach and year in, year out, I'm at a school that I just can't get over the hump because I'm never going to get enough good players to get over that hump. I got to think outside the box, and I got to make the other team. I'm not going to play the normal thing. I got the pole on the wing. I got the guy here. I'm going to substitute my offensive guys in and out, Digo. Or at some point, I'm going to say, let me recruit some two-way guys who push the ball up the field, push tempo, and get these other really good teams out of what they normally do and make them uncomfortable in how they're playing.
Great point. Great point.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, that to me is like, I said one time just kiddingly, and it happened at a necessity one time. Actually, Petro was on my summer league team coming out of high school. We only had 4 defensemen on the team. 3 of them didn't make the game. And we ended up, only Petro was there playing defense. And we were playing with short sticks on D, but guys were running over. And I said, think about this. If you played with 9 short sticks, and you really got guys who were smart enough to know who had to stay back and who had to go over.
You'd never.
How would a team adjust to that? That's playing, the style where they got to get their guys on.
Now that's genius.
There's something.
I'll give Vinny credit where credit's due. That's genius. That's why I give him a compliment every once in a while. Transition.
There's something to it. I mean, I think that where we start to try to develop in a lot of our fall and winter, like we play sixes, everybody with short sticks. I think that it's an important way of getting people to play a little offense, little defense with a short stick, moving your feet, more basketball style, just to like kind of get up and down. I think, but to your point about playing to a system or playing to your players, like right now, when we get kids out of high school, if you're an offensive mid in high school, you have no idea what you're doing on the defensive side.
Right.
If you're a defensive mid, so we try to get some kids who can kind of know how to play. But I think if more pickup was played on an up and down type of way, if more sixes was played, then I think you probably could adjust your system to that. Right now, I think more often than not, it's a big lift to get kids to play on one side of the field, and we have some guys right now, and if I have a midfielder, for example, who has done an awesome job for us. He's played, he played first 6 games, he played fully offense. Then we moved him over to fully defense, and now he's at the point where he's playing both ways, and it's helping us a ton in the middle of the field. Like, I'd love to get more people like that, but the reason he was able to do it is because for his high school team, he was doing a little bit of everything because maybe he didn't go to the St. Anthony's, the Chaminades, the really high level groups, which I think they play today, right?
Yeah, they do.
4:30, we all go. That's our tradition. We go to the game. It's at St. Anthony's. Then after, I take everybody out to dinner, like 6:30. And it's amazing time, like all the experts.
You're gonna work on getting that $1 million tonight, right?
Oh, I'm gonna help you, Ricky Ryan. I lost my friend last year. He knows. Played for the university, but this has been great.
Yeah. So, Vinny, I guess to your point, like, I think ideally, being able to have guys who can play both ways is awesome. It creates so much more for your team. I think it creates offensive transition. It makes it easier in the sub game for other teams that try to do that. But so many kids are so specialized early that we kind of have to cater a little bit.
They're not learning that.
They're not learning that sixes style. I think that's how every kid should play until they're 12. I think they should play sixes. I think they should get up and down.
It's like basketball. I agree with you.
Look,
offense and defense.
Say this, John. You mentioned that you talk about that free flowing offense, right? I hate to say it this way, but and for me, it's because I did after college. I got to play 13 years of box at a high level. The Canadian players are in a little bit more of an advantage of that because when you're playing box, you are playing that indoor game. You are playing that free flowing style using the picks and movement, and in tight spaces. So that offensively, I feel like an elevated offensive thinking player when you could just throw them in and they can fit playing with anybody.
Great point, Steven.
And I think there are kids that come out of systems, whether it's from high school or certain clubs or whatever, they come in and it's like, they're like one trick pony. They don't have the skills, the mind skills to be developed and do all of these different things. And I just feel like the Canadians are a little bit better.
They're so advanced. I agree.
Because of the box. I do think that's a difference.
And I don't think it's American kids' fault. I think it's just the way that the youth system is for lacrosse. Like, I would never have known how to pass, cut, pick, or screen until I played those pickup games with you guys.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't have known until I played with someone who's way older than me. I wouldn't have known how to throw a big box fake until I saw, whoever it was, do it at a game when I was in high school. They were in college. Like,
right.
Like the everything is so like, all right, you are your age and you have to play this way.
I'll give you a great
playing with an older
Vinny,
guy.
can you imagine if you were born in Canada, Vinny?
I want to give you a great Vinny one. I'm coming out of high school. I go to play with Harveys in summer league. As every port kid would come out and play Harveys at first at Caniac.
Sure.
And Vinny's playing, and I get a ball. I run down. I maybe cut down towards the crease. The guy's on me. All of a sudden, the ball is there. I'm catching it, and and I shoot it, right? I'm like, Vinny says, just be ready. If he's not looking at me, that ball's coming, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
who would even think that? That's not a high school level play, you know? I'm thinking, wow, I'm like, this guy's
That's
literally, I smell his breath, and Vinny's throwing me the ball, but I'm not really covered because he has no idea where the ball is, you know?
That's like the organic way that's how it is in box lacrosse. Like
Right.
they have runs with different teams and different age groups, and they watch, from a young age, they watch the older guys, and there's just more of it's become so much of an industry that I think that it's created a world, and it's a necessary thing. And there are kids who also get way better playing in the club. So I'm not saying that it's all wrong, but I do think that there's more for that. I think that when I get kids who have played in something like that in college, they pick up the offense faster. They do things differently. Maybe if they're not an offensive guy, but they could go right into D midi, and then they could give us some transition in the clear. Then maybe we could play some 2-man game in the in our early offensive phase, and it just gives you more variability. And I think that basketball, you watch kids grow up, play basketball in the park. There's a guy who's 18. There's a guy who's 12. The guy who's 12 is watching what he's doing. He's learning from what he's doing, and there's just more of that in other sports that I think if lacrosse, you can find some opportunity in places like Long Island, in Baltimore, in DC, wherever it is, to just mix the groups up.
Great analogy. I like that.
It becomes more fun, and then they become more malleable and variable when they get to college.
All right, I'm gonna have to run soon.
We're all going. We're all going.
Usually get to our shout outs. Yeah. I don't know Vin, you want to go first?
I got a few things.
I'm going to give a shout out to another guy who used to come down to Alley Pond, and he's developed to be a very high level player right now. He's having a great season, and yesterday was named to the second team All Big Ten. Aiden Mulholland.
Yeah,
Aiden.
That's right.
He's having a great year, and we're very proud of him.
Small.
Yeah.
You said
I just got a few things.
Go ahead.
It's a few things to add to the repertoire, whatever that word is. The
repertoire.
I had a bad case of how do you say it? Forget about ADD. What else was it?
I don't know. You take it to another level.
All right. See what? No, a few things I want to support you in. I'd like to see you do a little more of, as you're so busy with your game, to help the sport. You probably do it anyway because I see the person you are. I'd like to see you support more of the women's game. Do you have a women's team there?
Do I?
No, they have a girls' lacrosse team at your college.
Yeah. Yep.
I'd like to see you support them more and kind of bring the guys out for more support for our women's game, for it to grow more and stuff like that. Because without women, blah, 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 all the good stuff.
I told them to write these things.
Go ahead. What else? What else you got?
They never let me do it. I'm sorry I'm different, guys.
Go ahead.
And if there's one piece of advice I could give you. Oh,
boy.
Now I forget because he does this to me. No, it was one piece of advice I could give you. You're not going to know where it's coming from, but believe me, and Vinny knows what I'm talking about. I would like Vinny not to say anything what it really means. Before some of the games, towards the end of your season, don't tell anybody, but go out and warm up the goalie. It'll mean much more, and I'll tell you at the end of the season what that meant. Vinny knows what I'm talking about. And Vinny, would you agree it's monumental? Would you agree with that statement, what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's monumental.
Don't say who.
It's monumental. It's monumental.
Thank you. All right, hold on. I'll get through this.
Kills me. He kills me.
I wanted to go through this quick. Now, one of the greatest things is Vinny gets asked all the time. So I'd like to give him a little credit. And he still gets asked. We're in our late 60s. It's over. We got a few days left. Vinny, why are you friends with Smalls?
That's the best question. That's the day.
It might be.
The guy kills me. I always say this guy could be an actor because he's got me on the phone. He's very funny. He gets asked time and time again. And someone brought this up to me the other day. I never told Vinny this. A good friend asked this to Vinny too. A couple very high-end guys. They want to know about me because I'm different, whatever it may be. I got shortcomings. You know what he said? Some guy asked Vinny, why are you friends with Smalls? You know what Vinny said? Because he needs me the most.
That's nice.
No, and that's a friend.
That is.
He was one of the. Forget about how great he was. He's a 4-time World War player. But I argue with him a lot. I do. I'm not the perfect friend, maybe, but he treats me with and Steve with the utmost respect. I don't have the right language. I can't articulate it. But I have to say in the sport, and you'll know this anyway, you're never going to get two greater guys in the game that support so much in the sport, Crawls. They mean so much. Even if I come from a different angle, he'll come over and explain it this way and explain it this way. And as far as Vinny, as great as he was, and he was great, 4-time All player, I was told by 3 great people I was able to get to meet because of them. You know what they told me about Vinny? As great as he was in lacrosse, he was a better on the field coach and helped them win championships like his little brother. His little brother was 10 years younger, had to live in the footsteps, or whatever those words are, to a guy who's an all-world player. And Vinny treated him so right. And then 1 year on the club team, there was 1 year, Steven was club player of the year. He was the best player in the world for 1 year. But I'm saying that's what he has done for so many things. So you can't get better guys than this.
That's nice. But, we can't. Thank you. I appreciate all the kind words, Smalls. But
hold on. 2 more things and I'm done. I got to go, Vin.
Are you done? Are you done?
No, 2 more things. Hold on.
Oh, no.
Hold on. And remember to thank your wife and your mother because they are the true goats. They took you to promised land and drove you. And the last thing, what's your favorite ice cream? Because my friend, what's the guy from that likes ice cream? You know his name, Carchatella.
Coach Wojcik.
Coach Wojcik and Coach Carchatella. Carchatella. What's your favorite ice cream?
I'm pretty simple. I like Marvell in Long Beach, and I like the soft serve vanilla with rainbow sprinkles. I'm pretty simple.
Boy, there you go.
That would be my go-to.
Nice.
All right, and I love you. You got a great attitude. And
shout out Smalls.
I got his mother and father.
Okay, great.
His mother drove him every day.
Exactly.
She made him the pancakes. She got him thick. She's the goat. That's why I said they're the goats.
My shout out's going out to the Chaminade varsity. Good luck today. Big game, St. Anthony's. I don't know the last time they beat them. It's probably been a couple of years, I think.
Excuse me, 5 years.
5 years. Okay, so this might be the year. It's going to be a tough game. It always is. Rivalry game, and people are talking about it, and wish them the best of luck.
Where is it at? Is that Chaminade or St. Anthony's?
Yeah.
Hey, Crawls, in case you're not busy, but you're always busy, we host parties every year. I host the quarterfinals. Vinny does the picking. I'd like you to be a guest. You, your wife, your kids. If you want to come down to Hofstra, I have a suite down there, whatever.
Beautiful.
Love to have you if you could ever do it. And also the Final Four. I happen to really like you. You got good insight for such a young man in the game. It's very impressive. I haven't been impressed with all the other guys
Any
except
shout
for you.
out, Crawls? You got any shout out?
I don't have any shout outs. I'm just excited for practice today.
There you go.
Yeah. It's right for business. Right?
Ready to go.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Loved having you. Love anytime a Port guy and the history. We're so proud of you, all the things you've done and all the things you will do as you build that program down in North Carolina. We're really excited to see what the future holds.
How old are you, Crawls?
30.
What? Holy crow. See, holy crow, you got it, Vinny. All right,
guys. Well, we'll see you next week. We'll get
Thanks,
this
John. Take care. Good luck. Good luck the rest of the
you
way.
guys.
you got a great smile, man. Keep going, man. Coach. Keep going.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
and just hang on.